Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm just hitting the got it button for my recording here. Here we go. So we have a fun 2 hours ahead of us where we just get to, relax and create a beautiful spiral rope bracelet. Got lots of time for questions and lots of time for fun stuff. I think we can get to a lot more detail about just how the stitch is made, and I want to spend some time talking about how we can change it up, and so that you can use any beads you'd like for this design. So we have lots of just great stuff to cover. So I'm going to just explain the materials really quick. And so on my mat, I have 4 tubes of beads, and the beads that I'm working with for the class are going to be some 8/0 beads with 3 different colors of size 6. And of course, this is something that as we're going through creating, I'll talk about in some detail about if you had different bead sizes you wanted to use, you could do that. And so this is just a really versatile, very versatile stitch. It can be ended a lot of different ways. So of course, it's going to be stitched with our usual Wildfire. And you can use a size 10 or a size 12, whichever one you have handy. I think I'm probably using a 12 today because that's what I had out last time. Buttons, if you are doing the button option. But if you'd like to try the barrel knot with your leather, if you have a cocktail straw handy or something like this that is just hollow in the center and your leather or whatever cord you'd like to use fits through it, it will work for a barrel knot. You can also do a barrel knot without one of these, and I'll be able to show that too if anyone has that as a question. And so here's the actual finished bracelet. I'm gonna put a little close-up view of that here. And it's got the slide knot on it. So it's just got a little, barrel knot here. This is the same leather I just showed, just a different color. And it's a really easy way to finish a rope design like this. This would work for other things too, besides this kind of spiral. It would work for other rope stitches. And let's see, that's pretty much all the materials and everything about it. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll lay my beads out and we'll get our thread going. So here's my 8s. I'm just going to put those kind of up here. And it doesn't matter what order you lay out your beads in. You can just choose, like, say which one you'd like to be A or B or C. And as long as you stick to it, it doesn't matter. It's just consistency. I'm just kind of randomly going with these. Here's those. So again, that's 3 colors of size 60 beads and 1 color of size 8. Then for thread, so definitely on one of these, you're going to be adding thread. And depending on what working length you cut, I think in the directions it's like 70 inches. That's really up to you, how much you'd like to work with. Choose something that's comfortable, that doesn't knot up, as easily. But just as an example, this is how far I got with an initial wingspan of thread. So for me, that's probably like 65 inches or so. And that's about how far I got. And I'm at a spot here where I need to add thread. So it's ready to show that when we get to it. But definitely you'll be adding thread, so don't sweat how much thread. And I did forget to show earlier scissors. So there's those. Anything will work for cutting your thread. All right. And I'm just going to go really, really slow through these steps, and I'll have plenty of time to show it more than once and answer questions about it. And right now what I'm doing is I'm grabbing my square nose pliers, so I can do the usual trick here with flattening the end of that Wildfire, so it'll be easier to get to my needle. Looks like I grabbed my 10s here, so I am working with some 10s. It's a super flexible design, so it really is a design where you can use what you have handy. And we'll talk about that after we get the basics of the stitch. We can go into some detail about how to change it up and use any beads that you've got. So I'm just folding it over, the usual single strand working, and we're ready to get started. Okay, so the way that there's a lot of different ways to start a Russian spiral, and you've probably seen a lot of different versions out there. This is the one that I liked. It's the one I picked up first. And it starts with 2/8, and then you put your color A, size 6. And then you need 4/8, and only in this first row do we need to string this many. And this is because we're going to build off of it, and it's going to kind of do, and similar to what happens when you're doing like a round peyote stitch, it pulls one up. That's why we're doing 4 here. And then I'm going to string my B, color B, size 6. And then I need 4 more of these 8s. And my color C. And then I'm just going to go through all those beads again. And it should form a ring. And once you've got your ring, you can make a decision here if you'd like to go around it again, or just maybe throw a stop bead on this side. I usually just go through it one more time to tighten up that first step. So that's what I'm doing here. Oops. All right, when you get back to the first bead, go ahead and go through those 2 size 8s. So you want to be exiting from, you want to exit from those first 2 size 8s, and you're ready to kind of step up over your color A, size 6. And so that's what that first ring looks like. And so what I'm going to do next is, you're always going to be picking up the color that you're jumping over. And you're going to start with the 2 8s. And then I'm jumping over a yellow here, my color A. So I don't really even have to think about what color I'm using anymore. I'm just going to match the one that I'm jumping over as I go around. And on this first row, just to get started, we're going to skip also the first 2. Those first 2 size 8s, and we're going to go through the second 2. And this first row, it's going to be a little bit loose. If you can get your beads to sit on top of the row like mine just did, they just kind of snapped up like that, awesome. If they don't do that for you at this step, don't worry about it. We'll tighten it up. But sometimes they do. So here's 2 more 8s. And then my next color is the one I'm jumping over. And again, I'm going to skip those first 2 8s. I'm just going to go through the next 2. And what I'm doing now is I'm kind of helping it sit on top. And one of the questions that came up, I know a lot of you guys get the PDF in advance and check it out. And then I get lots of really great feedback. And one of the things that I want to make sure I cover is how to get the tension, because that's the only thing that could be a little frustrating. And what I discovered is on this first row, you do have a lot of loose, thread showing. When we weave in the tail, it'll fix that. And as we weave in through the next few rows, tension here to get this tight, I'll show you how to make it. I started to pay attention to what I do because I hadn't really thought about it. So, well, I think I know what I'm doing that makes it tighter. And so I'm going to show that once I get like one more row in. But for now, don't worry too much about how it's a little wonky. But see how the beads kind of start to spiral next to each other like that? That's the first 2 rows. They're already done there. So it went pretty quick. And using the 8s and the 6s, this is going to go really fast. So now I'm going to start my row 3. Got my 2 8s. I'm jumping over a yellow, so the yellow. And then if you look here at the side, we want to go through these next 2 size 8s. And the reason we do that is we're skipping those down there. They've just become part of that row 1 because of the way we did that stitch. So we are sort of doing the same thing. It's just a lot more obvious the ones we're supposed to go through after you get through and start row 3. So there's 2 more 8s. And then my next color. And again, I'm jumping over this one and going through the next 2. I'm just being sure not to go through those 2, right? We're just going through the up beads. Think of them as like kind of like in peyote stitch, like the up beads is a good way to visualize it, I guess. There's 2 more and a 6. Crossing over. Just jump through those. So I'm gonna do the, let's do 2 more rows, and then if there's anyone wanting to see it again, just drop that in the chat, and we can do one more time. Here I'm starting my row 4. Just picking up 2, picking up the color that I'm jumping over, and going through the next 2 size 8s. And so here's where I want to talk about tension. So I just did something there. I started to go through these 2, and I noticed that I nudged that 6. What happens when you do that is it stretches out that row a little bit. See, I'm kind of nudging it. That's going to mess up my tension. And I didn't realize it, but I also kind of pull on this strand first. And I dropped my bead there, sorry. And then when I go through these 2, I start going through them, I get almost there. But if I feel like it's still kind of wonky, I might pull this one more time. The thread's already through it, so my chances of kind of budging these is already passed. And now I've got a pretty tight pull there. So try that. And if that helps with the tension issues that I believe it was a couple of you guys mentioned it, that you were having that problem. So see if that helps. And if it doesn't, we'll talk more about it and we'll try to figure it out. So there's my last one. All right. So I thought I would just see, I see at least one again, please, here. And yeah, okay. Carmi, I'm gonna go ahead and start over, and we'll go from the top on this one. And in case anyone was missed the beginning, I am at the moment working with a size 10 right now, but you can use a 10 or a 12. And I think inside the handout, I probably wrote 12 because it has an alternate version that uses some 11s or some size 11s, and that if you're using the 11s, the 12 will be easier. Where did my thread go?
It's Carmi.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't want to leave you alone too long because it's a 2-hour class. I'm just going to remind everybody that everyone is muted. So if you wouldn't mind, Lisa, I see you. I don't know how to turn you on and do that the way maybe people are doing in other classes. So if you wouldn't mind, could you just type your question and I will make sure I forward that to Danielle. And hopefully, as she's demonstrating it a second time, she might be answering that question for you. And that goes for everybody. I will monitor the sidebar, send me a private message or just send a message. And then when I think it's a great time for Danielle to stop, because she is in a bit of a, it's hard to teach this and stop. When she has a quiet moment, I'll ask your question. So thank you, Lisa, I appreciate that. And Danielle, I think you should start as though you haven't even presented it yet. Start it from scratch.
Okay,
and we'll catch everybody up.
And hi, Lisa. I see you there. I have some people at the top on my screen, but I have my mat big so that I can see if I'm going off camera. So I don't see everybody at the same time, but sometimes the chat pops up and sometimes it doesn't. It's interesting. But, yeah, so I'm gonna just bring up the other project really quick. Sorry, the finished project. So what we're going for here is we're trying to make a tube like this. And to do that, of course, any beads would work, but this, current design and the counts I'm using require size 8s and 3 different colors of size 6s. And I'm going with 3 different colors just so, you get this kind of cool spiral look. Not only that, but also it makes it easier to count your rows. so you can tell how many you've done. And also just, to kind of delineate the stitch a little bit. At the end, we're going to put this through it. Some leather, you can either do a button version or a barrel version, and I'm going to try to show both. The thread that I'm using today is a 0.06 Wildfire. It's the one that we use this a lot in class. It's one of our favorites. And I'm using some size 10 beading needles. And really, it's pretty light supply list. I feel like this is a really versatile one. It's a use what you have, any colors you've got handy, any colors you want will work great. And so when I'm threading my needles, I know that's kind of a struggle sometimes. It really helps to take some pliers and just flatten the end of it. And when you do that, it'll kind of, I don't know, almost like a little, as thin as a piece of paper, really, and it goes right through that needle. And that little tip has saved me so much effort because I did not know that for a long time, and I sat there and tried to thread my needles the hard way. And so as far as how much thread, so earlier I was showing about 65 to 70 inches will get you about that much, and then you're going to have to add. So I always just tell people, cut a length of thread that won't tangle for you, so that you can work comfortably with it and not be worried about knots or anything. Adding thread in this design is super easy, and we're going to show that too. So just cut a length that you like and then get started. I'm cutting a pretty short length here because my field of view is tiny. All right, so we've got my thread, got my needle threaded, and I'm going to build the first circle, the first ring of this design. And it's built by picking up 2/8 and 1/6. And then there's 4 of the size 8s in your next color of a size 6 bead. Bring that down. 4 more 8s. And then you pick up a 6. Leave a good tail, enough tail to weave in. We don't have to do a lot with this tail. It's not going to be, used for a clasp or anything. So it can be 7 to 10 inches or so. And then just come back through all your beads. So we strung all these beads. This is the side my needle's on. I'm going back through all of these beads again. I'm just going to tighten that into a ring. And at this spot, you could do a couple things. You can go back through it all again, which is what I like to do, or you could throw a stop bead on your tail. And the stop bead option is good if the reason I suggested it or even mentioned it is because if you're working with your 11s, when you go to put this second pass through, and then you come along later and you're trying to weave in through your 11s, the Wildfire is kind of thick and it'll make that last pass through your 11s a little bit tight. You'll definitely want to be using a 12 for that. So that's why sometimes I'll tell people throw a stop bead on it. But in the case we're using 8s and 6s, and it's no biggie. I'm just going to go through all these again. And just going back to the first bead that I added, which were those 2 8s. We are kind of treating those 2 8s in a way kind of like one bead. If that helps to visualize what we're doing. And so there's my first ring. And that's all done. And I've passed back through the first 2 8s that I added. And so then what you'll want to do is pick up 2 8s and then pick up your color A bead. And in this stitch, the anatomy of this stitch is really interesting. And when you start working, you'll think about, well, how can I change this up? I'll talk about that after I get to that spot, but I wanted to just show right here, roughly equivalent in width is 2 8 beads and a 6/0. They're a little bigger, but what we're doing here is we're making these 8s kind of arc over our 6s. And that's why when you switch to the 11-0 version, there's 3 11-0s, because you're arcing over your 6, and then the new 6 will sit like right next to it. And how that looks for ring 1 is you want to skip these 2. So skip the first 2 8s. And then go through your next 2 8s. And when you pull tight, you'll see these 2 8s, they start to arc over the first 6 here. And the new 6 sits above the 2 we skipped. So we created a space for it when we did that first ring. And now we're going to go through these next 2 and do that same thing again, but with our color B. So there's 2 8s and 1 size 6. And again, we're going to skip that 6. We're going to skip the 2 8s that are next in the ring. And just go through the 2 8s that are after that. All right, and so kind of the same thing before, it's just going to kind of sit right on top, and you can see these 2 8s arcing over the 6. And I'm pointing that out because it's kind of a key thing to how, if you wanted to change up this design and use something else, another bead size, or knowing that anatomy can help you figure out your counts. And with the 11s, for example, we pick up 3 and it crosses over the 6, right? But what if that was a 4mm bead? Or what if this was a 6mm bead, or a bugle bead? The way you would calculate that is you could just see how many it takes to just kind of rainbow over it, if that makes any sense. So now you can invent your own stitch with just that little bit of info. Okay, and so there is the end of that row. And a good way to count your rows is just take any color, pick a color, any color, and count the number of beads you've got. You know how many rows you've done that way. And then I'm starting my next row. So here's 2 8s. And here's my size 6 bead. I'm going to cross over that 6. I'm going to skip those 2 and go through those next 2. And that same thing again here, just 2 more 8s. Here's my color B. I'm going to skip that 6. And my tail's in the way. I'm going to get my tail out of the way there, because that would have tangled on me. There we go. All right. And so again, just 2 8s and the next color. Skipping the 6 and those 2 8s and going through these next ones. And here we go. So they should start to stack like that and kind of spiral, and then just keep going. I'm thinking, oh, sorry about that, guys. I've got a little cough there. I'm going to just do a few more rows. And then if there's any confusion about this, just let me know. So there's that next row there. Oops. My camera's a little funny there. I'll fix it. There we go. And again, that tail just wants to go the wrong direction, doesn't it? There we go. And if you're struggling at all with getting these first few rows, just go ahead and go slow. And this, take a long look at it. A lot of the people get confused, and sometimes they'll go through here. And you'll notice right away if you do that, because you won't have anywhere to come through on the next pass, and you only have 2 things to pull out at that point. But I feel like there's like a little divot that you'll see, because your 6 is going to sit on top of something, right? So it kind of helps you visualize as you're going around. what bead to do next. And oops, there we go. So it's really, I feel like this is a really easy stitch, honestly, once you get the hang of it. The only tricky parts can be getting that tension right. If the tension's not cooperating, the things that I would try to fix the tension is, let me show you what I do this next pass. So not only am I kind of, I'm pulling right now on this side from my needle and I'm pushing here, that's tightening things up. But then also when I pass through my next little segment, when I pass through these next 2 size 8s, sometimes I have a tendency to hit the next 6. When I do that, it's going to loosen that row. So just in case I've done that, once I've got the needle through it, I'll come back over here and pull on this. And that just helps. It just helps get it a little bit tighter. And so I'm at a good stopping point if there's anyone who has a question or.
Hey, Danielle.
Hey.
Again, a really fast question from Jessie. Do you think this would work with an 11 and 8 combo for sizing?
Yeah, 11. It's in the handout.
Yep. So in the handout, you actually walk people through that.
Yeah, and I do think there is time to show it if there's interest. I think one of the most fascinating things about this, this type of bead weaving is that you are not limited to bead sizes in any way. You can change it up kind of indefinitely.
And Danielle, sorry, while you're just getting a little break in here, this is an unusual class for us because it's one of the few beading classes where some people actually can bead along with you. So I want to make sure that they have a few minutes to catch up. But if everyone has 1 second, would you let me know if you would like Danielle to show that a 3rd time? And if I've got 5 or 6 people that just didn't get it yet, we will start it over.
Okay, yeah.
Our good friend Sharon is not getting it yet.
Okay, do you guys want to, we could start this again. And I think I will still have time to show using 11s after this.
Okay.
I think we're good. So
we are exactly on time of where we all thought we were going to be at this point. I think we all agree, once you learn how to start this, then you just can keep going. So if you guys can get the first 3 rows, you're going to be able to do this. So let's make sure everyone knows how to do those first 3 rows, and not a problem. We'll definitely, let's start that again. And Danielle, I'm just going to watch the sidebar for where people are at, and time permitting at the very, very end, we're going to show it with the smaller beads, because everyone, you can imagine that it's so hard to see. So Danielle is working with the biggest beads possible so more people can see. And time permitting, we'll show you with the tiny beads at the end. So let's start over. And for those of you who got it, congratulations. Keep stitching, keep going, and you can just listen to Danielle telling everyone how to do it again.
Thanks, Carmi. Yeah, and I feel like every time I go through it, I remember something else that might help somebody. So it's good. And I actually chose this design specifically for this class because it's one where, when we're in the only 1 hour ones, I want to go over it like 4 times, but we can't. And this is one where it really is, you're sailing. Once you've got row 4, you're done, you've got it. And then it's just, finishing the same thing over and over. So I want to make sure my goal for tonight is everybody can start their stitch and has their rope going. So we can do this as many times as you guys need. So the basic, starting point here is that you want to get those, that first row strung, which ends up being kind of part row 1 and 2, but I'll show you that. Just start with 2 8s. And then you want to get that 6 on there, color A. And then pick up 4 size 8s. And get color B. And then we're going to get 4 more of the size 8 beads. And your last color, color C. Once you've got all those strung, give yourself a little tail over here. So you want to leave at least, 7 to 10 inches. We're going to weave that in at the end. And now I'm going to take my needle here, which is exiting from this side, right? I'm going to go through all those beads again. And when I get through here, I'm going to continue, go through these first 2 again. So I'll just keep going. So there's that ring. And we'll go through the first 2. So you should have something that looks like that. And then I like to go through all the beads one more time and just exit right here where I am to strengthen up the stitch. I'm doing that with these big beads. If you're using the 11s, which I'll try to show that, I'll be showing that either directly after the, yeah, I think we can do it right after this, and then we'll go to the adding thread. But if you're using the 11s, I found that sometimes it helps to do a stop bead instead, and I'll show that. But for this demo, I do recommend going back through it one more time, especially if you're struggling with tension in any way, because this will help with that. If you get that first ring tight, you have something a little stronger to go into. Now, if after this you feel like this is still moving on you, like if you can pull this apart really easily, I can't very easily pull this apart. It's tight, right? But if you are finding you have movement here, even after that, you can go around again, or you can go ahead and throw a stop bead on there. And if I was going to do that right now, what I would do is I'd pick up on my tail side, just go ahead and pick up a bead, go through it again, and slide it right up against your first 2/8, and that'll lock it in. And I do think that the tension is a struggle, so I'm going to try to really focus on that when I demo this round. So I got the first 2/8 on, and I've got the 6. And I'm skipping over the first 6 and skipping the next 2 size 8s, and going through these next 2 size 8 beads. And when you pull tight, which you'll see in a 2D view, what I'm doing is really I'm just putting 2/8 on top of my 6 and putting my 6 on top of those first 2/8. When I pull tight, they want to sit on top of the last ones, kind of like on the side, right? But what it looks like flat is that. It does help with tension for this row to tighten it here. If you're struggling with it though, remember we have this tail over here and it's going to need to be woven in. So if your first 3 rows are feeling loose to you, don't worry too much about that. We'll have a chance to fix it with our tail. And that might just be the case when you start your stitch, but as you get going through the next few, it will get tighter and tighter as you go. And we can look at that if that's not working for anyone, we can check that out too. But I've got 2 size 8s on, and I've got my next size 6 bead. I want to skip the 6, skip these 2/8, and let's come up through those next 2/8. Same thing we did before, we're just going over the next color there. And same thing here, we're going to have 2/8 on top of our 6. 6 can be on top of those last 2/8. And when you pull tight, it kind of just sits on top of the last one like that. And I'm going to get my tail out of the way. And I need 2 more 8s, and I need my color C. Skip the last, your last color C here. Skip these 2. And now come up in those 8s that are right before the second A you added. And go ahead and pull that pretty tight. I might even just go to town like that. And then you'll just want to keep doing that same thing, or you pick up 2 8s and 1 6. And again, we're going to skip our 6. And we're not going to go through those two. We're going to go through the next 2 8s. So you're always kind of just skipping over what's in the row before, right? 2 8s and 1 6. Picking up the color I'm about to jump over. Skip this one and skip those 2. Come up through those 2. And it should sit right on top. And here's 2 more. And my color C. Skip the C, skip 2 8s and come up through those 2 there. All right, looks like it's going pretty well out there. So I'm going to do another row. Go ahead and pull that one tight. You just kind of get into a flow with this stitch. I feel like it's, once you got it, you don't really have to think about it very much, other than watching out for that pesky tail. Get that out of the way. There we go. And here's one where I felt like I moved it, so I'm just pulling on the side. See if that helps my tension. And I guess, you know, if I think about it, I'm kind of positioning it too, especially as you get more rope going. I'm trying to figure out, how am I making this so tight? Well, I think what I'm doing is also, I've got my thumb and my finger pinching my thread right now, kind of acting as like a little bumper against these beads as I pull. So now when I pull my tension really tight here, kind of bumpering against those last 2 beads. I wonder if that might help, because if I was to do just pulling on it, maybe I'm just holding it like this and I just pull it. Now I'm putting some, I guess, some shearing force in this direction, which we don't want. We want it in this direction with a little bit of help from my thumb there. It's interesting. Sometimes you just do stuff without really knowing what you're doing. It's like the hands have their own little logic train going. Yeah, definitely. Anyone struggling with tension, try getting your thumbnail against those 8s. And you get your thread in your fingers right here, right? You get your thumbnail against those 8s and then just give it a tug. Oops, wrong color. It's easy to see that though, because you always want to be picking up the one that you're crossing there. All right, let's do one more row. And then if it's okay with everyone, I could pull out some size 11s and we could just examine the differences of counts for that. Here's my last one. And so that's it. Yeah, I'm now just keep going until I run out of thread, which will probably happen somewhere around there.
Danielle, so sidebar is a little quiet tonight because hopefully a lot of people are trying the stitch, and I'd like to give them the opportunity to try it and then, you know, catch us on the sidebar. What advice do you have to give to someone like, this is just not working tonight? Like, do you have any advice for any other tips, or is there another stitch they could learn first?
Yeah, peyote in the round can be helpful because it's similar in structure. But I feel like honestly, this one's easier to start than peyote. So I'm a little torn, but yeah, maybe if you started with a round peyote, that could help. But it's really a matter of just keep trying. If it's really not clicking, take a short like break and let your motor memory form, and then come back and try it one more time and see if suddenly it just clicks at that point. I often walk away from stuff and then come back I give myself maybe 5 minutes or so, go try something else, get some water or something or some tea, and then come back, and suddenly I'll just get it and I don't even know what changed. So that's something right there. Also, let's see, like just watching someone do the stitch again. And so this there will be a video. I do think I could do it one more time if you think I should, Carmi, but there also will be the replay available for.
I'm going to watch the time, Danielle, and I agree. We have a mixed group tonight, so we did let people know this was an intermediate class, and so for our intermediate beaders, I would love it if you could show them just once the tinier version, and then we'll get back to using big beads that everyone could see. And also, one of the people did ask, do you think it's more helpful if you had a chopstick or something to work on? Like, is it maybe that you need something to form it against, or is it your best advice to build like this?
I'm not sure. I know that when a lot of people are working around peyote stitches, they certainly do use like a pen or a pencil inside, and people swear by that. I think everybody's got their own style. For some reason, I think I just like to have the ability to lay it flat when I'm working. If you're working on a form, you're I'm not sure. I think it's just, I would say just try it, and it might help. It certainly might help also with tension maybe.
Great, thanks, Danielle, because I know it's not on our list. We're not teaching it around a pen or a straw, but if people want to try it, they should definitely try it.
Yeah, and also just let me know if you feel like it's helping. I'd love to hear that, because maybe I should try it.
So for anyone who is working and it doesn't have time to read the sidebar, here's what we're going to do. We showed you the main stitch 3 times. And if you didn't, if you're not beading along, you're going to watch later, great. You're going to have the recording to watch it forever. Now Danielle's going to show you the exact same stitch, but with tinier beads. So definitely this is a little bit harder. The smaller things are, the harder it is to do. But I know there are a couple of you out there that definitely want to try a tinier version. So let's have Danielle show us.
So I'm just getting my needle threaded here, all ready to go. Same thing for how much thread to cut. Just cut a length that you like. Using the smaller beads will make this bracelet take longer to create, and you'll be adding thread more often. But it does really create a really beautiful stitch. And I think the first version of this that I did was done with 11. And I purposely changed to 8s because I knew we were going to be on the Zoom. And so I used that little trick from earlier that I was sharing to figure out, well, what do I need, right? I was trying to figure out how many beads do I need to use if I switch my bead sizes. And what I have here is the amber mix. This is the one that's in the handout. And I've got some violet size 11s. Let me show that vial one more time, just in case anyone's got a question about that. But it's the just regular size 11 seed beads. That really pretty violet color. And so really similarly to how we started the other one. But this time, we need to work with 3s. So remember with our 8s, we were picking up 2s, and we were working in groups of 2 and kind of essentially treating those 2 beads like 1 bead for the purposes of our stitch, right? In this case, that's going to become 3 size 11s. So every time we go through, we're going through 3 11s. And that just happens to be pretty equivalent in width to, let me turn this on its side a little bit. Something that can rainbow over your bead, right? So if you have another bead you want to try, like say you've got some fire polish or like a gemstone bead or something you want to try, this is how you do it. This is how you back up into your counts. Is just take whatever accent bead you want, your 8s, your 11s, your 10s, and hold it kind of to the side. And if it is just a little bit wider, not too much wider, but just a smidgen wider than your bead, you've got it. And then you'd set it up the same way that we set up our first ring, remembering that you're going to double your count in between the next two. So here's my first 2 11s, and here's my first color, size 6. And now I'm going to need 6 of those, right? Because you want 2 groups. So we're going to get 6 11s. They're so tiny. I'm still using my 10, but I think we'll be okay. My size 10 needle. I've got 5. I need 1 more. And I'm going to go to my next color. Actually, let's go for something a little darker. There we go. So there's that. And now I need 6 more. 5, 6. Let's go for that really beautiful kind of golden amber color. And so you should have, it looks like this is 3 11s, 6, and 6 11s, and a 6, and then again 6 11s and a size 6 bead. Come back through all of them just like we did before. I've kind of lost my tail here. I'm going to pull it down. And going through it, let's see, it might get a little tricky. They're going to move around more than the 8s did. But here's my ring. I'll just keep going. All right, when you get back around, go ahead and pass back through those first 3 that we strung in the row. And there we are. Now at this point, in fact, I could have put it on before, but a stop bead can help because I don't think I'm going to go through it again on this one. I bet I could, and it would be fine, but I am using a size 10 beading needle, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's my stop bead. I'm exiting from those first 3 we strung. And now we're just going to pick up 3 on my color A, which was this like kind of pearly, like luster maroon color. And so remember how before we'd skip 2, go through 2, skip 2, go, we're going to skip 3, go through 3. So skip these first 3 and head through those next 3. And same as before, we're just going to help it sit on top. I'm just giving it a push there and pulling on it. So I've got those 6s and those 3 size 11s that I added. They're just kind of arcing over my first 6. And the 6 that I just added is sitting on top of the 3 that we skipped. And so same again, I'm going to pick up 3. And then grab the next color. And of course, we're going to skip over our 6 and our next 3. And it's a little teeny, but I'm going to go through the next 3 here. And then it's just going to sit on top of the other one. And I feel like with these small beads, it might even help tension because they do stay put, especially with this really thick thread. So there's 3 and a 6. We're skipping over. We're going to skip our 6. We're skipping those first 3 here that are in that ring at the, below this one. We're going to go through those 3, the ones that are right before our next color, right? So, and that is the step up right there. Although in this design, I feel like the step up is pretty seamless. There's nothing extra you have to do. My tail is below, so we're good. Is it? Yeah. And pull tight. And the same thing, you'll get those 3 11s kind of sitting over that last one. And this, what you're seeing here, that's my stop bead. If it helps, you can use a different color so that that will stand out to you if that's confusing at all. I probably should have used a different color stop bead. So now I'm starting my next row. I've got 3 and I've got my color A, which is the one I'm skipping over. And I'm skipping these 3 that are down here in that lower row. I want to go through the 3 that are in front of my next color. So I want to go through those 3. If I can get through them. And I'm doing that thing again where I use my thumbnail to help with tension there. I hope I'm explaining that well, because I do think that might be the ticket. There's my iris brown with my 3 size 11s, skipping that brown color and going through with these 3 right here, right? There you go. See our spiral is starting to form here already. But the height of the stitch is much lower. It's got a lower profile because we switched to 11s. So here's 3 11s and our 6. Go through those 3. We're going to tighten that down. So let's just keep going. Let's keep going so you can see it build. But if there's anything confusing about the counts, basically all I'm doing is the same exact thing we did with the 8s, but I switched to using 3 instead of 2. I've seen some really gorgeous versions of this stitch done with bugle beads. And the only reason I would call it an advanced stitch is because the bugle beads perform differently than a round bead. And they do require some finessing. Things are really wonky for a while. But it's really incredibly gorgeous when the bugles are used as the 6 here. I've seen a couple artists do that, and it's amazing looking. And so yeah, the 11s, they're going to give you, as I was saying, what I mean by like a lower profile stitch is that you don't get as much holes, space between. And oh, I want to show something. I did something wrong. Look at, I picked up 2 here. So you'll catch yourself as you're going around. Now I could do one of the things. I could just say, and not worry about it, but it would still work. Your stitch would actually still work. But I think I'm going to pull it out and fix it, right? If you get to something like this and you see, oh, I didn't pick up 3. I only picked up 2 because you should have 3 here. You can pinch your last bead and pull it out. And I only have to go back 2 stitches, right? So I'm just going to go around. Here's 1. And there we are. Here's where my mistake was. I'm going to pull my 6 off. I need another 11 on there. So here's my 11 that I didn't get on there right. So he's back. I think it fell off my needle when I was stringing there. And so I'm just going to finish that stitch. Going to come through these 3. And this is really truly beautiful. I mean, this color combo and the way you stack, it gets me. I want to try like so many different colors. It does take a lot longer to get a finished rope when you're working with the tiny beads, but boy, is it gorgeous. Here's the next color. And you see how I'm kind of selecting colors, and this mix, the amber mix, has more than 3 colors in it. you can save the ones you don't use and make another colorway with them. So I'm kind of ignoring my transparent amethyst here, and I'm ignoring my golden sun color, and I'm ignoring root beer. So those could become something else in another design. But I found, especially working with these, with the 11s, you'll end up using more 6s, right? To get the same height of rope or length of rope. You will need 2 tubes if you're trying to pull colors out of a mix like this and have enough. You'll run just a little bit short. And here's another thing I watch for that I just did. I only went through 2 here. I didn't go through my 3rd one, and I caught it. But for example, if I got all the way around and hadn't realized I'd done that and I got to the other side, it would become really obvious once I got there, and I'd have to back out and fix it. But okay, I saw that now and fixed it now. Here's 3 more. So how's everyone feeling about the small beads? Is it looking like something that makes sense?
I think we've got a couple people. Luckily I can see Pat. So I can see you nodding, Pat. So I think she's laughing. Some of our intermediate beaders, I hope this helps you. Why you guys want to do the tiny beads, I do not know. I'm so excited, Danielle, for you to go back to the bigger beads where I was understanding it more, but you intermediate beaders, you guys have to post your tiny bead projects. I definitely want to see it. So Danielle, thank you for going off to that. So we are exactly at the 1 hour mark. So
oh my goodness, really?
We knew there's no way you can teach Russian spiral in 1 hour. So happy that we have the 2nd hour, and for everybody who is paying attention while Danielle is cleaning up her area, have a little stretch, stand up for a second. And we're going to move to the point now where we're going to assume for some of you, you have 2 or 3 inches done, or you're waiting and watching, which is great. And Danielle's going to show you now what happens when you run out of thread, because that's pretty crucial in this project, adding thread to keep going.
Sounds good, yeah. So I'll give everybody a minute to grab some water or anything that you need to grab for the next step, maybe another thread spool or something.
I'm very excited. I don't know if anyone else has a minute to say anything on the sidebar, but we do have Kim has done about 3 inches. So we've got a couple people who are definitely moving right along. And Danielle, at some point, I know you're going to address when do you stop? How to make it work around your wrist. So I'm going to give everyone 2 minutes. Danielle, if you have a glass of water, stretch for a second.
Good. I'm going to queue up my next piece here.
Yes. Oh, and someone's already run a thread, so the timing is perfect.
Yay.
Stand by, Paula.
It happens quick, doesn't it? You can finish one of these in like an evening once you get going.
Sharon's doing well. She's finally got 1.5 inches done. That
Oh, awesome.
Me very happy.
Oh, hearts do you do? I see you, Patty.
Seema, are you doing it with us?
I can see
okay, Seema's watching. Danielle, at the very beginning of the class tonight, someone's wondered, if it is easier to do it with the 3 bright colors. And now that I'm watching, I think it is, because it's really hard to mess up when you're going over yellow, you need the yellow. I think once you master this, then sure, you can use a mixed bead and do whatever you like. But I think what you're doing tonight makes it seem makes much more sense that you have to follow 3 colors. Valerie's done well too. She's even ready to end it. So good.
Oh, wow. You guys are doing great.
Danielle, did you bring a little glass of water for yourself? Are you ready?
I did, yeah. I just had a sip of it.
Okay, so what I'm going to say at this point is let's just assume that everyone has got a couple inches done, or they're in their mind planning out their first one and they've just run out of thread.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. So that's where I was here. And I just went ahead and sat it aside so that I could show you guys what to do next if this happens, or it will happen when you run out of thread, not if. Unless you cut like a really long strand, right? So I'm going to add some more. And, you know, same thing as before, just cut a length that is comfortable for you to work with so that you're not getting tangles and you don't have threads going everywhere. And the same trick for flattening it so that you'll be able to get it through that needle. And let's see, I've got a needle over here. At the end of class, I always got a really big pile of like needles and threads everywhere. So here's my needle, just the end I flattened. Let's go ahead and thread that. And I did leave the needle on my working thread from before. You can do that if you want to, if you've got a spare one, just saves you the step of threading it later. And I didn't do anything, but I just stopped where I was, where I felt like I think this is about 7 inches or so, maybe a little more left to weave back in. And this is really almost identical to the way we've done weave-ins on nearly all of our projects. I usually choose not to knot it. You can if you want to, but there's no, I feel like knotting anywhere in here is kind of awkward because it's going to pull your tension out, right? It's going to do something funny. So really the best way I think is just to weave in a new strand and weave out your old strand. And I do it that same kind of trick where I start weaving in down here, build a few more rows, take my old thread and weave it up. And so you can just choose anywhere you'd like to enter the work. And then again, it's that leave a tail, and we're going to just weave till it stops moving. And the path you want to follow, you can do two things. You can go around and down. You'll basically have a junction after every. The only thing you really don't want to do is you don't want to stray from going through the 2/8, right? You don't ever want to separate your 8s. But from here, you could go through the next 2 8s. Or you could go through the 6, and both of those will be totally fine. This is also a great opportunity to fix any gaps that are bothering you in your work. Like for example, right here, let's say I wanted to fix that. I could go back. I just noticed that just now. I could go back through the 8s there. Oops. And then just keep going through these 8s, right? And tighten that up. So lots of choices. And the only real goal here is making sure our tail does not move anymore. And then we start building new rows, right? I might go through these 8s. All right, and so for the knotters out there, because I know it just makes you feel better sometimes if you've got a knot. If you were gonna do a knot, you really wanted to do one, meet your thread, you know, your tail. This is my tail here from my new strand that I'm weaving in. You could meet it here and go ahead and see I'm coming from this 6. If you wanted to, you could. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna keep going, but I'm gonna cross it. There's strength in crossing your own thread path as far as weaving in goes. So I'm just gonna go over it. There we go. So let's do a test. Let's see if it moves. I'm really pulling on that thing. It's not going anywhere. So this is my tail for the new strand. This is my working exiting thread here. Pulling tight as I can. We're good. I only had to go around one time. I've already got a solid weave. Now I just need to come up. And I do have a confession to make. I may have done something a little bit not great. I'm going in the opposite direction of my spiral. So you notice how my thread's exiting this way, but I'm going this way. Couple things you can do. Starting over would be the most ideal. Go ahead and, you know, weave in another strand. You could turn. It's not going to be horrible if you turn. I just made that turn and it's fine, right? Up to you. I don't think it hurts the work, but I probably should have come in from this direction. So you see how your spiral's going that way? I should have needled in from this direction to avoid having to do that turn. But having done it, it doesn't really look that bad. So I think it's fine to do that. I think you can go ahead and make that turn if you'd like. So I'm just gonna keep going around until I get to here, where I left off my old thread. I do that so much and it gets me almost every time. But I think it's fine to do that turn. Oops. Whenever I hit the camera, I'm worried it's going to make everyone dizzy. Okay, so I'm just weaving around until I get to where my old working thread is exiting, which is right here. And if you were going to knot, here's another spot you could do it. You could knot your old and new threads right here, but you really don't need to. Before I go any further, I'm going to get rid of this tail so that it's not in my way anymore. Burner, if you've got a burner, go for it. Use that. That'll be great. If you're using scissors, just push down and pull up. All right, so here's where we left off. My old working thread is here. This is my new. I'm just gonna start building a few rows. I'm gonna cross over my 6 here. And then going through the next 2. Let's get that next color here. Skipping over that one, skipping those 2, go through those 2. And then the same thing here. Let's do like 2 more rows and then we'll weave our old thread up. I love these bright colors. They're really pretty. Okay, 2 more and then I'm just going to switch back to my old thread. Okay, setting this one aside for now. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my old working thread. I still have my needle on there from before. I left it in place. Here's where it's exiting. And I have that same decision-making tree here where I can go down through the 6, or I can go through the 8s, up or down, whichever I'd like to do. Especially if there's like a gap you want to try to catch. I'm just going up. It's harder to tell with your old thread if you've got a solid weave in because there's nothing to test it, there's a tail to test it with. So give it an extra loop just because, why not, right? There we go. And again, here's a spot where you could knot if you wanted to. I'm just going to go one more loop around.
Hey, Danielle, it's Carmi.
Hey,
I'm watching your needle and it looks like your thread's just about to come off.
over here. Yeah, it's getting close.
Making me anxious.
It does, huh? It's going to go flying somewhere. But yeah, when that happens, I usually decide, okay, I'm going to trim it now. I'm back where I started there. And it's going to trim it. All right. And so now I've got a new working strand. My old strand's gone. I didn't create any bulk because I wove in down here and took my old thread and put it up here. So it still moves like the rest of my bracelet. And it would probably take me another 60 inches or so to get this to be about 6.5 inches if I was going for that number. And
Danielle,
so
your timing is completely perfect. So you said at the 1:15 mark, which is coming up, that you would be showing us 2 leather cord finishing methods.
yay, we did good. We sailed. That's so great. Okay, so I'm gonna just I'm gonna walk through some of the process for deciding whether or not you think you've got a length you can work with. So I'm gonna bring out our trusty little board here. And then also before I move on, I wanted to just double check with everyone if it's okay. I can show weaving in your end. It's the same exact thing I just did for the new thread. But if anyone wants to see that again, just holler in the chat. The way you weave in here at the end is you just take that needle and you just start traveling. And so what I would do is use my design board. And depending on the type of clasp I'm going for. So for example, if I was going to do the, I'm doing the barrel knot. And I want to be able to wear it like, maybe like that. I know it's going to need a gap about that big. And I am eyeballing it. I'm not being super precise. I'm just kind of trying to figure out. I'm leaving extra room too. Because keep in mind, this is a very bulky design. So size it a little bit up for the size you would normally wear in a flat piece. So it's going to just need a little extra room. Yeah, so I took this one to about that measure and I thought I was happy with that. So I was going to finish it. I wove in all my strands, trimmed them, and then I'm going to get some leather. And so you can use actually any cord you want. You don't have to use leather. I just had leather handy and I had a color that I thought would be really cool to use, this blue. But in the samples over here, I think I'm using another color from Michael's, which is just the regular, like a brown camel color. And so you have 2 choices, and I should be able to show both of them. You can do a button, or you can do the barrel knots. So I'm assuming there's at least a couple people out there that want to see the buttons. So maybe I'll do that first, and then we'll do the barrel knot after that.
I agree, Danielle. We'll do the button and then the barrel.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's measure. So how much do I need to cut? Remember, we need to do some knots. If we're doing that button, we're going to have to do 2, maybe 3 overhand knots in order to have it work out. Our button will be at a midpoint, right? We'll do a knot here. That's going to gobble up some length. We're going to go through the bracelet and exit down here, and you need to leave some room for 2 knots, right? So let's give it a little extra. So based on the length of your bracelet, just give yourself a little bit extra room at the bottom. And my field of view is kind of tiny here, so it's hard to see. I also have a tip about cutting leather. I'm a flush cutter person when it comes to cutting my leather. I think it makes it, because you can give it a little edge on it like that. But anything will work. Scissors are fine too.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So here's some buttons that I've gotten from the, these are in the sewing section at Michael's. So you just go to like the, in my store, it's a couple rows over from the beading section. I'm gonna get that button on there. Bring it down to the midpoint. So I've got the tails pinched here. And bring this down to the midpoint. And just a super simple overhand knot right here. If you get bubbles in your knots, pull on the strand that's causing it individually, and you can fix that. All right, and so there's my button, my knot. I left some air on my shank so that it's got, you know, room to move. And once you've got that, it can be a little tricky to feed it through, but it is doable. And I honestly, I just sit there and I just make it go through. If you're having any trouble with it and it starts to poke out from your stitching, just pull it back, move it around. But sometimes I can get one through and not the other. Eventually you get there and it will just kind of work out. And that knot should stop it from sinking into your work. If you're getting a situation where you're using a different kind of cord and it's sinking in, depending on what you're using, you can add a bead or two. Maybe if you're using like 1 millimeter leather, for example, it would be possible for you to get a pony bead on it, and you could use that instead of doing a knot. So there's lots of possibility there, but I found that with this leather, which is, this is 1.5 millimeter, I believe. It's the only size leather like this that they have at the Michaels. So it's the one in the handout. The one in the handout's actually the camel color, but it's the same size. You should get a knot that will sit like that. And if you're working with other cords and you don't like it or it's not working, you can always just, you know, swap your cord and save that for another project. Just find one that works. But once you've got this done, kind of going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put another double knot. And I meant overhand knot, not double knot. Sorry there. Slide that down. And if you pull the strands by themselves, it can help you get your knot tighter. If you got a little bump like that, help it go over. And it's possible to pull your knots out. If you're not happy with it, you can pull it out and start over. All right, so now I've got that. Now let's measure. Remember when you're trying to do your, like when you're putting on a bracelet, you need room to move, right? You need some wiggle room. So don't go like super close. You want to give it at least the width of your button plus some air, right? So I'm going for like right there for my knot. Let's see if I can remember where I put it. And I'm going to make my knot pretty. I'm going to bring that cord down. All right. And then you can make it adjustable by doing another knot, like at the end. But if it's for you and you want to, you can also just trim it right about there. So, and this is why I use my flush cutters. Forgot. So it's just a really pretty closure, and it's super simple. And if you have gorgeous buttons in your stash, like I know a lot of beaders out there collect those really gorgeous check glass buttons. I might have made my button loop a little bigger than needed, but a little smaller might have been better in this case. And it is possible, I shouldn't have trimmed it yet, but it is possible to actually unknot. Just get your knot out. If you were going to sell this and you had knots like this and you were worried in any way about them coming loose, a little hypo cement's totally great to put on your knot. So I'm going to undo this one so I can show the barrel knot. And does anyone have any questions about the button closure?
Hey, Danielle, the button closure is surprisingly easier than I thought. And Kim just said it was really cute. So
Thanks, Kim.
perfect. Yeah. And I think if you would have left it the way it was, it would have fit my wrist perfectly. So just let
I'll be sending it. Get this one too.
That's perfect. Yes. Sharon said it very straightforward. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it. I think that's the easiest and the chance to use a nice button if you've got one that you really want to see and try out. So the next type of option is to do that sliding knot. And I want to point out one thing about the sliding knot, just in case, because it is a single strand running through here, only one side moves. And I want to make sure that, and it doesn't matter which side. I made my other side. So this side, it's always going to be on this, right? Because this was the one that was wrapped around. So that's just something to point out, that only one side moves in this design. And if anyone has any questions about that, let me know, but I just wanted to make sure I point that out. So you can't count, this side is decorative, right? It's just made to look kind of the same, but it's not moving at all. And how I did that is get my bracelet back here. Give yourself lots of extra. So there's my length. I know I need it to be that. I might even just go ×2, right? Because we're going to have some room to play with it.
Danielle, do you think the barrel knot, the one that you're demonstrating now, is better if you're selling jewelry because it's more opportunity for it to fit more wrists?
It's a really good question, and we are having that, design to sell class coming up. And honestly, I'll give you guys a heads up on our whole theme for that night is simplicity. Always, for some reason, triumphs, and I don't know why that is. I personally love to put a gorgeous check glass button on mine, and that would be my preference, and that would be the one I would buy, right? But for some reason, this would sell more, and I don't know what that reason is. It's just, yeah, and that's of course just my experience. It might not be the same for everyone else in their market, but yeah, this one is slightly more versatile. Another thing about the button closure, the adjustable version of a button closure, some people don't want to use the second button loop. They want it to fit them proper, right? But they're not going to sweat it if there's some gap here. But they might sweat it if they had used the second button, because then it just doesn't look symmetrical. And this moves so you can get symmetry, whereas on an adjustable button loop, you wouldn't have that symmetry. So that could be part of the appeal. It also just looks really cool. So
thank you. Yes, it's great tips.
But I like the buttons. I got to show the buttons some love. And I ended up cutting a little bit more than, I actually haven't cut it yet. And I usually do, but for tonight, I was thinking I might show it in a way that will help people decide how much to cut after you've got it strung. So let me try to explain what I mean when I'm deciding how much I need to cut. We got to leave enough room that we have these little tails, right? And I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. So I'm putting it through. And it can be a little tricky. There we go. Now I've got tail side one. And that's got a funny edge on it. So that was the part that was under the staple. I'm going to trim that off. And I know I need to have a knot on that side. So I'm leaving extra room to make, to make this knot. And over here, same thing. plus a few inches for the barrel knot. And if you're worried at all, you know what, just give yourself extra. For sure won't run short, and you'll have enough to do your looping around. So the basic way to do this is leave this with about, leave one side with about this much on it. So how much is that? Let me get my tape measure really quick. I'm gonna give you guys actual numbers. I eyeball everything, so it's discipline for me to pull these out. I'm going for about 4.5 inches from my exit point. This is the one that's not gonna move, the one that I'm gonna wrap around, right? And this one's much longer because I need room to wrap it. It is, how long? It's going on 11 inches there. It's probably more than I need. I'm gonna go with it. Okay, so laying them one across the other. Here's my short end. My super long ones over here. And I'm just kind of laying them on top of each other, kind of like if you were gonna macrame it, right? And now if you have a cocktail straw, hold it up against those pieces and just kind of pinch them together and take your long strand and start to wrap. Now here's something to pay attention to. We want our coil to go that direction, not this direction. Because if your coil is going this direction, you're going to come through on this side. And if you do that, it's going to put the exiting strand going in the same direction as this strand, and you won't get this cool look where one's going this way and one's going that way. So I'm going to coil that way. You know, it's a little counterintuitive, but when you see what we're going to do with this coil, you'll get why we're doing that. So there's one loop around. And another. And it's up to you how many loops you want to do. I think in that other knot over there, I did 4. 3 or 4 is really pretty. All right, so I've got that coiled around. Now I'm going to take this straw and just kind of slide it. You could also trim the straw. That might even help a little bit more. I'll push it down. And bring that, this is the one we were coiling with, right? It's coming right off the coil. Just go through the straw. You'll see it over here. Pull your straw out. And I'm still pinching that coil in my hand. I'm gonna pull that leather there. And don't worry, we'll do this again. So if it's not clicking, don't sweat it. That's pretty tight. I'm gonna make sure it moves. So this is the side that's gonna move. And this is the side that's not. So that's why I left a little bit more room over there. All right. So there's our knot. And then what you'd want to do is you want to take each of these ends, tie some knots at the same places. I'll show you how to do that really quick. Whenever I'm trying to put a knot in the same place, I'll do one that looks good to me. It's probably a little longer than I make it actually. Move it down. This leather's not as soft as the brown for some reason. It's a little stiffer. And now I'm gonna lay it like that and try to put my knot here. Just by pinching it really. Okay, and then trim. Like right there. And so now you've got a totally adjustable bracelet for someone to wear. And to put it on, just pull this other side. It needs a little bit of help to get put on, I think. Sometimes I can do them myself if I try hard. But in order to slide it, you do have to push on the barrel. So yeah, do you guys want to see that again, doing the barrel knot?
Hey, Danielle, it's Carmi. Yes, I held my breath the entire time,
Yeah, me
waiting,
too.
waiting. It was magical. Who invents these knots?
I don't know. I
Yes.
learned it from Kelly Sutton. If anyone knows Kelly Sutton, she taught me.
So yes, that's amazing. I think it's tough enough that you should just demo it a second time. More than likely, if you weren't working in such a teeny tiny camera space, you would use your body to help you hold it and
Yes.
pull on it. So someone was recommending holding it against your body as you were pulling. I know you can't do it while you're on this camera, but yes, I would love to see it again.
Let's do it. Yeah. And so this is a notoriously difficult to unravel knot, which will give a seller some confidence. To get it undone, if you really wanted to, you have to pull it apart. I'm going to switch to another piece of leather though, because this one's going to be wonky.
Danielle, when you're wearing it, how tight do you keep it? Like, do you just,
With this one, I keep it like that. I'll pull it as tight as I can, really. And
okay,
it doesn't move. It stays put.
it stays. Okay, that
It's,
answers Jesse's question.
yeah, and it makes up for it being a pain to put on in that it holds its spot, which is really good.
Danielle, I think you can afford the cord. Just cut it.
Just cut it. All right. I just didn't want it to
cry,
like,
but I think you just cut it.
I'm so close though. I'm so close. Here we go. Because I'll use that for something, right?
I know. So will everybody else.
So true. All right. You know what? This other color moves better. I'm going to switch back to this blue. It's a little less, it's a little more maneuverable. And I cut way too much last time, so I did not need that much. Sometimes it'll have this curve. If you got it coming off of the card, like I do, that curve is going to really give you a headache when you're trying to thread it. So there, I wasted some leather on that one. Just gonna get that through really quick. Also, sometimes when you buy leather, you know how you can buy it on a spool, like a round spool? If your leather is coming off of a round spool, it's going to have a natural curve to it, and it's not going to behave very well when you're trying to put it through straight. If your leather is curving because it came off of a round spool, work it around when you're pushing it through, and that'll help. In my case, it's actually helpful not to do that. Almost there. There we go. Okay, just making sure I have some crossover here. Okay, I'm gonna turn it here. Flush side, kind of toward the work.
Danielle, when you were wrapping it around the straw, how tight were you getting to the straw? Or was the straw just a marker for you?
Really, all I was trying to do is make sure that I could get through my coil. And because it's really hard to get it through your coil without a straw, it basically means you have to find your way back through this coil you've made. And there's a trick to leaving enough room, right? I could just show really quick what I mean.
Straw was great, but thank you.
Yeah, so really what you're doing is you're just wrapping this cord around that cord. And that's all you're doing. And so if you were going to do it without a straw, it's hard. It's totally doable, but it's hard. So you just keep going. I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but let's just see. I'll go back to the straw. Also, it helps if you don't do as many loops around or coils around. But so see, there's my coil. And I could go back through it. Will it to do that. There we go. So yeah, so you can do it without the straw. It's just, I feel like the straw makes a really pretty clean one. And you can get more coils going. Like you could go to town with coils.
We've decided the straw is best.
The straw is the way forward. All right. So I'm gonna just lay that there and bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And I'm gonna just lay that there. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And then I'm gonna turn it here. And bring this one over. And Okay, everything looks good. I'm gonna wrap around. Making sure this coil goes behind the first one. And now I can just make it. Oh, and the more coils you do, the stronger your tension will be when you're wearing it. So if you ever have a problem where you feel like you're, where you feel like it's not tight enough, it's coming loose while you're wearing it, more coils makes it tighter. Less likely to slip, I guess. Not necessarily tighter, but it's there. And it helps with the straw because you can see it come through. All right. And then you would just do your knots at the end and then trim it. You could even put charms. Wouldn't that be cute? Put the charms on one side and then like kind of wear it like that. That would be really neat looking.
That's gorgeous, Danielle.
I like it. I like the blue with this colorway.
So Danielle, our timing is right by your agenda. So I'm happy we've got about 20 minutes left.
Cool.
I want to keep stressing the most important part of the class tonight is that people learn how to use the Russian spiral stitch. And I think for a couple of people, it's going to be a challenge, but they're going to practice. We had one student tonight that is working with different sizes.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if you have one, if you have it in front of you, and because you've been stressing that you can learn how to do this with many sizes, would you be willing to show 11/0s and an 8/0?
Yeah, I can do that.
8/0s?
Let's see. I've got some. I want to get a different color. Let me see. I happen to have a wall of beads behind me.
Yes.
So 11/0, right?
And if you do that, there might be a few more people watching that have this as their supplies too. So
Okay.
this is tiny.
Let's do it. Let's try it. So I have not done this configuration before. So let's play and let's just go through the process, together and see what we get. I've got a flat end here on my thread. Just gonna thread that through. There we go. You guys, I use a lot of Wildfire. I go through the 300-yard spools like every month. No one's probably surprised to hear that because I do a lot of my own just stitching in addition to class, and so I use so much of it. So there's my 11s right here. Those are my turquoise color. My 11s are turquoise now, and my 8s are purple. Is that a good colorway? You guys can see that?
Sure,
good?
we can see.
Awesome. Okay. Handy there. Okay. So I'm going to make a guess here. I'm going to put this one on my needle and I'm going to just look at it. You know what? I'm going to find that needle over here. Somewhere. I do. The reason I'm going to grab another needle is I'm just going to use it to make them sit side by side. I just want to see, I have a hunch it's going to be 2. And that's my guess, but let's just look at it. The process with it, we're studying here is I want it to be just a smidge wider, right? That's going to work fine. So we're working with 2 11s and 1 8. Let's look at it. Let's check it out. Okay. So here's 2 11s. That tail. And then 1 8. And so now we would need 4 11s, right? And 8. Here's 4 11s. And then 1 more 8. There you go. It's going to be really pretty. It's going to be intricate looking. So let's go back through all those beads again. There's our ring. Let's go back through one more time, or yeah, you know, I think I'm going to go through again. It's a little bit loose. I went backwards. Why did I do that? Okay, going forwards again.
Sorry, Danielle, I know I put you on the spot.
No, I'm good. Actually, I enjoy this stuff. I figure everybody's knows that I'm winging it and they're with me. This is the real process. And it doesn't go when you're on your mat, it doesn't go 100% of the time, right? We all just kind of fumble with it sometimes, and then we just play and get it, you know, we figure it out. So I only went through it one time. I think it's pretty tight, and I'm not going to go through it again, but you could, and that might help with tension. But so here's 2 size 11s and 1 8. So skip your 8, skip your 2 first 11s, and go through your next 2. And when you pull tight there, it's going to sit on top of the other one. Just like before with our 6s, it's going to do that same thing, but now it's an 8. Here's 2. And then there's our 8. Let's skip that one. Skip these 2 and go through this one. Ooh, I'm probably going to finish this one. It's really pretty.
Yeah, we've sent you down a new road.
Well, earlier today, I was looking at, I have a really pretty 8-0 mix, but I don't have a corresponding 11 that I love that I want to throw in there. And so sometimes when I'm trying to figure out like what color do I want my main, this is the main, when I say the main color to be, or sorry, that one's the main, the one that you're using as the base. If I don't have the right color and I want to work with just one side, so I was going to experiment with just doing all 8s and see what happens, in which case it would be 1 for 1, right?
Ah, that's giving people an idea.
Yeah, it would work. It would work with your 6s too. You could just do 1 for 1, or you could do 2 for 2, or
Pat, 1 for 1.
And I have it like this, like I was saying, this gorgeous 8-0 mix. I want to try like that and see what happens.
So for our student tonight that's working with 11-0s and the 8, this is just an extra little sidebar class that we put in, which is great. I feel like it's Russian spiral stitch 2-0, but now that I've watched you all night, I feel like an expert, and I'm counting along with you. Over and 2, over and 2.
Yeah, yeah. And any counts will work. And I mean, you can go crazy. What if our 8s were a bugle? How crazy would that be?
Danielle, have you ever tried this with crystals or gemstones?
Yes, yeah. My favorite actually is to do with like a 3mm like gemstone bead, but I bet a bicone would be amazing. Like if you had a little bicone crystal, it would sparkle, and that would be so cute. You can mix it up too. Like you could do a crystal with gemstones, or. But I like the seed bead version because you don't have variation in sizing. Where if you're working with like a natural bead, you would have more. You'd have to kind of finesse it, I guess, as you work through it.
Paula, who's watching tonight, she's made one with bicones.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Now we're all going to have to try it.
Yeah, that's got to be beautiful. The very first time I made the stitch, I think I was using fire polish beads and the configuration was a little bit different, but it worked out really nicely.
And Pat's recommending too, if you use the 3mm round crystals, it's about the same as the seed bead, 3mm. So
good point.
Really see the sparkling. And we're getting comments. Yes, it's beautiful to do it with crystals. Okay, Danielle, thank you very, very much. I won't keep you going. I just wanted to make sure that our one students can work with the supplies that they have. Last
to test one thing in case I wanted to make sure that the leather wasn't a problem. So if you are doing this version, you're going to have to do the barrel knot.
It's going to have to be barrel knot because only one 2mm cord will go through.
Well, it's going through, but it's really tight. And if this was a long one, I'd really have to work that to try to get it. It's possible, but it might make you kind of frustrated, I guess. Or you could just go down to a smaller leather, which would be also,
Yeah, a 1 millimeter leather cord, maybe.
yeah.
Danielle, I think your timing tonight has been beautiful. Thank you. There are a couple minutes left, so I will watch the sidebar, but quick question for you. Have you ever ended your bracelet in any other way other than using leather cord?
Yes, yeah. In fact, we have on the blog a tutorial for how to end it without using a cord, where basically you taper down. And the tutorial was our spiral of bees. In case you're looking for that, just go to our blog.johnbead.com and look for spiral of bees, and you'll find it. And you just start to taper down here. Instead of adding your 6, you would go 2 8s, 2 8s, 2 8s, and then you go 1 8, 1 8, and 1 8, and then you'd have like a point, right? And from that point, you could build 8s out and attach a toggle bar. You could do just a little loop and attach another kind of clasp. So lots of possibility there. I think we used a toggle in the spiral of bees one.
Perfect.
And on
Thank you.
yeah, on that one it was cool because we tacked another bead on top in a really similar fashion to how we're going to do next week's class. Something you can do with this is all these little threads in here. For the brick stitchers out there, think of those as thread bridges that you can build on. So you can actually put another set of beads on top of this one and just go to town. It looks really amazing.
Perfect. Danielle, you're getting a couple people are thanking you very much for the class. So I want to give you a second so that you can look up and see your screen. Yes, it was a wonderful class. I hope everyone enjoyed it. It was a great experiment for us to teach intermediate level seed bead class online. But you know, the great news is next Friday night, we're going back to a regular 1-hour class, and I can see it behind you.
Yeah, we're gonna do it's a seascape bracelet, and those are little seashells. And they're actually stitched on using that tacking method that I was just talking about, where you just kind of use the thread bridges in this design, which is a peyote stitch with super duos, to attach embellishment. So much potential there. You can use any bead you want.
That's great. And thank you again for the smaller bead tips, which is great. Millie's giving everyone an advance copy of the Seaside bracelet for next week, the project PDF, if they haven't downloaded it yet.
Thanks,
Remind
Millie.
everyone for tagging, tag Danielle, tag John Bead. We definitely want you to tag Make It With Michaels. And I think we did great for timing, everyone. So I'm going to scroll across because I'm always afraid to look at who's in the class when I'm moderating. So I'm just going to look, and I see Sharon and Paula now, and Alex, you're new to me, Doris, Kai. Oh, now I see you, Kylie. And yes, Seema and Cindy, Valerie, hi, Kim, Nathia, and a couple people don't have their cameras on. That's okay, because I don't either.
That's a beautiful spiral.
So we're able to see a couple people's projects. So thank you again, everybody. And actually, Danielle and I want to send a little shout out to Pat, thanking her again. She always tests our patterns in advance and gives us some great feedback. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll see everybody next Friday night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys then. Have a great weekend.